Good morning, everybody. We are back. We are currently going to read out of our Ancient Rome Reader after I give you a little bit of background information. When you get into the Ancient Rome Reader PDF file, we're on page 44, chapter 8, where we're going to learn about Caesar Augustus as he became called. But before that, I'm going to tell you a little bit of information about this man. Remember, when Julius Caesar was assassinated, there were two people who divided up ancient Rome. There was Mark Antony and there was Octavian, Julius Caesar's adopted brother. Because of Mark Antony choosing Cleopatra over his wife, Octavia, who is Octavian's sister, a huge civil war broke out again. And after that civil war, the victor of that civil war was Octavian. Remember, Mark Antony committed suicide because he did not want to be captured, as well as Cleopatra committing suicide by snake because she did not want to be captured and taken back to Rome in chains. So all of the conflict that emerged, that occurred after the assassination of Julius Caesar, through all of that and the dividing up of Rome and the reuniting of Rome, the one victor who came forward was Octavian, Julius Caesar's adopted son. He was very much like Julius Caesar. All right, now I'm going to give you a little bit more background information about him. After he defeated Antony and Cleopatra, Octavian became the ruler of Rome. 4 years after he became the ruler, remember, the Roman Republic was set up in such a way that your terms were limited. You could not spend a lifetime being in the government. That was not the way it was intended. Also, same thing with the United States. You're not supposed to have a lifetime in politics. That's not the way it's supposed to work. That is the way it's done now. It doesn't work well, but that is the way that it's done. So that is not the design of our republic, the Democratic Republic, and it is also not the design of the Roman Republic. So after his 4 years as the ruler of Rome, the Senate gave him an honorary title, and that honorary title that they gave him was Augustus. Augustus means sacred or revered one. While Octavian, now he's called Augustus Caesar or Caesar Augustus, he tried to keep the Republican government. He tried very hard to keep the Republic as it was. He had so much more power than anyone before him, and his rule is technically considered to be the beginning of the Roman Empire. This is where the Roman Republic changes to a Roman Empire. And also, this is where the Roman Republic, for the first time, they experience a long peace, and it's called the Pax Romana. And this literally means Roman peace. So they had 200 years of peace. Under Augustus, some things happened. The Senate continued, but it lost its power. He basically became the king. He was called the emperor, but he became the king. The Senate no longer got to choose who was going to rule. The emperor did this. Caesar Augustus created civil service. He established a post office. A postal system, He introduced new coins, and he changed the way the census was completed to make the tax system more fair. So instead of a few people paying a lot, he let everybody pay a more equal share based on the census. And the census is where you count people. That's what a census is. He set up the world's first fire department. He had roads constructed throughout the entire Roman Empire that allowed for communication between Rome and all of its provinces. You probably heard the expression, all roads lead to Rome. That is where that came from. And literally, that was true. Every road that was created underneath Caesar Augustus led to Rome. It was part of the road system that led to Rome. Augustus also worked to revitalize the Roman religion. So he promoted religious festivals and he encouraged people to worship the Roman gods. He did this because he wanted to build loyalty to the state. So that was his goal, was to build loyalty to the state, to rebuild that patriotism and loyalty to the state. He himself, Caesar Augustus, he used some of the tax money to pay for renovations and construction of elaborate religious temples and civic buildings. Civic buildings would be buildings like courthouses, post offices, buildings that benefit everybody, libraries, that sort of thing, a civic building. Caesar Augustus was also a great patron of the arts. A patron is somebody who pays other people to practice their art, essentially. It was during his reign that Virgil wrote the Aeneid, and this epic poem was meant to glorify Caesar Augustus and Rome. Other writers that also flourished during the reign of Caesar Augustus are Horace, Livy, and Ovid. So he was very much involved in being a patron of the arts. All right, let's go ahead and turn to our Ancient Rome reader, and we are on page 44. In the PDF file, it's chapter 8. I'm not sure if it follows along with page numbers exactly, but it should, because it's an exact copy of this book. Anyway, the title of this chapter is Caesar Augustus. First section is called Octavian's Return. When Octavian returned to Rome, he was 33 years old. Up to that time, he had had a remarkable life. He had been adopted by Julius Caesar as a boy. There, he was named consul of Rome when he was only 19 years old. That's pretty young. Octavian and Mark Antony had beaten Caesar's enemies. Each of them had taken part of the Roman Empire to command. Then Octavian beat Antony and Cleopatra. He conquered Egypt and he took Cleopatra's wealth for himself. He also had 280,000 soldiers in his army. That's a lot for back then. This was just the beginning. Now Octavian was ready to begin the most important part of his life. He was ready now to become the ruler of Rome. In this role, Octavian would show himself to be a smart leader who used good sense. So at the age of 33, Octavian became the ruler of Rome. And this was in about 27 BCE. Somewhere about 27 to 14 BCE is when this occurred. Okay. Octavian showed his smart leadership shortly after he returned from Egypt. At that time, the Roman people were celebrating Octavian's victory, which ended the Civil War and saved Rome. Octavian led a crowd to the Temple of Janus. The temple gates were left open during times of war. They were closed during peacetime. Rome had almost always been at war since its early inception, which was 500 BCE. We are now down to about 20, oops, sorry, you can't see that. Down here to about 27 BCE. So now we have gone through about 500 years of Rome being a country. And this entire period, they have been at war. There has been at least one war going on all the time. Rome had almost always been at war, so the gates had rarely been closed. Octavian closed the gates of the Temple of Janus. This act showed the Roman people that they could now live in peace. Octavian then set out to fulfill his promise. Soon afterward, Octavian bought land for the soldiers. Remind you of anybody? Yes, his adopted father, Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar also gave land to the soldiers. He told them it was time to leave the army and to go back to being farmers. Octavian himself went back to his job as a consul. He was reelected 3 years in a row. Excuse me. Then he told the Senate that he wanted to give back all of his power and he would serve Rome in the way that the Senate decided. So he wanted to give all the power back. He wanted Rome to be the republic that it was originally set up and designed to be. All right, let me see. I think we've got some questions here that we're going to ask about this particular section. Oh, goodness. I'm not even close to the right page. Sorry. I've been all over in my book. How did Octavian become the ruler of Rome? Yeah, he defeated Antony and Cleopatra. That's how he became the sole ruler of Rome. Remember, he and Mark Antony split up Rome after the death of Julius Caesar, and they resolved that civil war. They conquered Caesar's enemies, and then they split up Rome. Mark Antony took part, Octavian took part, then Mark Antony and Cleopatra caused some trouble, so Octavian took it all. So that's how he became the sole ruler of Rome. What did Octavian do during his victory celebration? And why was this so important? Yes, he closed the doors of the temple, the gates of the temple Janus. And this was so important because to the Roman people, whenever those temple gates were open, that meant that they were not at peace, that there was a war going on somewhere. For 500 years, the gates had almost never been closed. But Octavian closed the gates of the temple Janus to let the Roman people know that they were now going to be at peace. And how did he fulfill his promise? Well, he disbanded the army. You cannot go to war without an army, right? So he disbanded the army. He gave land to all of the soldiers, and he told them to go back to their job as farmers. And he himself went back to his job as a consul. Okay, let's go ahead and continue on. We're on page 46 now. The Senate decided that Octavian should command the armies in all of the large provinces. They also decided that Octavian should have a new name. He was to be called Caesar Augustus. Augustus is a Latin word that means revered one or sacred one. To be revered is to be the most admired and the most respected. So that puts him way up here. Augustus was named the first citizen of Rome, and the month of his birth was renamed for him. What month do you suppose Caesar Augustus was born in? Yes, August. August. July had already been named for somebody else. Who do you think it was named for? Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, Augustus Caesar. So July is named for Julius Caesar. August is named for Augustus Caesar, or Caesar Augustus as they called him. Augustus was not a king or a dictator. All of his power came from the Senate. He was always respectful of the senators and of the assemblies. The senators trusted Augustus because he used his power wisely. Augustus used his power to name new governors for the provinces and new senators. He got rid of the old corrupt ones. He also made changes in the Roman army. He paid the soldiers more money for those who stayed in the army. This helped make the army a good place for poor men to earn a living. Remember, Rome had a lot of poor people. There was a lot of poverty in Rome. Augustus built good roads throughout the entire Roman Empire. These roads connected Rome and the provinces. Augustus often visited the provinces to check if the governors were doing a good job. At the end of the Civil War, Rome was a dirty, overcrowded city. We already talked about that. There was a lot of poverty. Most of the streets and the buildings needed repair. The aqueducts, which carried water to the city, were also crumbling. An aqueduct is a structure that carries water over long distances. Many people who had lost their land during the Civil War now lived in Rome. They were poor and they were hungry. They lived in open buildings that often caught fire or even collapsed. Augustus bought food for the poor. He rebuilt many old buildings and he made laws that required all buildings met safety standards. He started Rome's first fire and police departments. He put Agrippa, his naval commander, remember the guy who was commanding the ships, the army ships, so the navy. They were the ones that trapped Mark Antony and Cleopatra, Agrippa, during that part of Rome's war. So he put Agrippa, his naval commander, in charge of the city's water supply. Makes sense, right? Agrippa and his forces rebuilt the old aqueducts. Augustus wanted everyone to know about the citizens who had helped make Rome great. He built a beautiful new forum in Rome. A forum is like the square. So like in Bentonville, the square in the middle of Bentonville where they hold the first Fridays where they have the little festivals, that's like the Forum. And around the new Forum, he placed statues of the Roman heroes. Augustus filled the city with beautiful new buildings. He built theaters, meeting places, and a grand new Senate building. He changed Rome from a dirty, ugly place to one of the most beautiful cities in the entire world. Augustus also helped to make Roman religion stronger. He repaired Rome's old temples and he built new ones. He brought back many of the old religious ceremonies and festivals. A religious ceremony, it's a formal event that honors a god or a goddess. Augustus loved books and ideas, and he often visited with writers and poets to listen as they read their work aloud. He asked wealthy Romans to be patrons to the writers. Remember, we said a patron is a person who gives money to other people or other support, such as an artist, so that the artist can work on their writing or their painting. These patrons gave money to writers so that they could keep writing. During the time of Augustus, talented writers wrote many great works. People today still read some of these great works. Rome honored Augustus for rebuilding the city and making life better for the people. They named him father of his country. Remember what they also had called him? They gave him a new name. What did they call him? Rome's first citizen or something. Well, we read it just a minute ago. Maybe it was in that other piece of paper. Rome honored Augustus for rebuilding the city and making life better for the people. They named him father of his country. Later, he was called Rome's first emperor. Remember, an emperor is a ruler of an empire, just like a king is a ruler of a kingdom. Got it? Augustus was the most powerful man in the world, yet he lived simply. His house was very small. His meals were plain. He was loyal to his wife and his family and the Roman people. He sounds like he was a good man. Augustus ruled as an emperor from 27 BCE until 14 CE. So we're crossing over the birth of Christ, which is where we divide from BCE to CE. So let's go up here to the board. Oh, way over here. Let's do some math. So from 27 BCE to the birth of Christ is 27 years. And then we enter the CE period. 14 CE is 14 more years. We add those together to figure out his reign. How many years is that? 41. How old was he when he started his reign? He was 33. Caesar Augustus ruled until he was 74 years old. That is old for somebody in that time, because remember, they didn't have the kind of medicine that we have. They didn't have any of the advancements that we have to make people live longer. So 74 is pretty old. All right, let's go back. He ruled as emperor until 14 CE. The letters CE stand for the phrase common era. The common era began with the birth of Jesus, which we already said. So Augustus ruled until 14 years after the birth of Jesus. So he was alive and he was ruling during that time frame. Well, that's the end. There's a couple pictures here, but if you have your PDF file open, you can see the pictures. One of them is a coin with his image on it, and the other one is a building. It is the, Pantheon. Of course it is. Okay, let's go ahead and answer some questions about that section that we just read. Do you remember what were some of the titles given to Augustus? Sure, Caesar Augustus was given first citizen of Rome. He was also called Caesar Augustus, which means revered one or sacred one. And he was also called Rome's first emperor. So Caesar Augustus, first citizen of Rome, and Rome's first emperor. Why is it important that the titles came from the Senate and not from Augustus himself? Why do you think that's important? Exactly. It showed the Roman people that he was important to them. It showed how much that he meant to the Roman people. He wasn't giving himself these titles of, I'm so important and I'm so wonderful. The Roman people themselves gave him that title. The Senate gave him that title. And that told the Roman people that he was willing to work with the Senate and not against it. So, in that aspect, he was not like Julius Caesar. Remember, Julius Caesar worked against the Senate so much. So, they butted heads a lot, which meant that they eventually assassinated him. But Caesar Augustus, worked with the Senate so that they could get so much more done when they're working together, right? How was Augustus's relationship with the Senate different? Oh man, I just answered that question. How was Augustus's relationship with the Senate different than Julius Caesar's relationship with the Senate? You should know this answer because I just gave it to you. Yes, Augustus showed respect for the Senate, and he tried to cooperate with them all the time. On the other hand, Julius Caesar did not work well with the Senate, and he did not have a good relationship with the Senate, which is why they eventually assassinated him or murdered him. Okay, I think that those, now we got a couple more questions here we're going to ask. Oh, what are 3 things that Caesar Augustus did to improve life in Rome? He did a bunch of them, but tell me if you can name 3. Good. He built good roads. That was a possible answer. Did you say that? He did it not just in Rome, but through the entire Roman Empire. So that's where that terminology, all roads lead to Rome. He connected the provinces of Rome with Rome through roads. He bought food for the poor. He rebuilt all the crumbling buildings so people were not living in dangerous buildings that caught fire and fell down on them. He made safe building laws so that when the buildings were rebuilt, they had to be built a certain way so that they wouldn't fall down on the people again. He started the fire department. He started a police department. He improved the water supply. He put up statues of Roman heroes. We're already on 8, right? To increase the people's pride in their culture. He beautified the forum. He built beautiful theaters and public buildings. He revived the temples. Now we're at 11. He revived religious rituals. He encouraged support for writers and poets. That's 13. You should be able to come up with 3. And here's a spoiler alert. That is a question on your checkpoint. When we're writing these down in our notes, make sure you're writing them down, which is going to be tomorrow, incidentally. How might Augustus's simple lifestyle have affected other people's opinion of him? Remember, he lived very simply, even when he was declared the emperor of Rome, or Caesar Augustus, the revered one. How do you think that affected people? Well, yeah, he didn't show off his money, and so people didn't think that he seemed like he was better than everybody else. So that would make people like him a little bit better, right? Imagine if me as your teacher, if I'm not rich, but let's pretend that I was, and I came to school in my Lamborghini and I wore diamonds and jewels and maybe even a tiara, and fancy clothes. And all the time I talked about how wonderful I was. And I lived in a fancy house, which I do not. Um, think how different that our relationship might be. Because you might think, oh, that Mrs. Campbell, we can't relate to her. She's got way too much money. I don't, just incidentally. But if I did, that would change the way that we had a relationship with each other. And that's the same thing with Caesar Augustus. He lived very simply. He lived like he had always lived. When he was elevated to the title of emperor or Caesar Augustus, which means revered one or most respected one, He didn't change the way that he lived. He continued to live his same lifestyle. Sound like somebody else we know? Cincinnatus. Yes. So there are some very important people in the history of Rome who lived very simple lives. They were good people and they lived well and they did the right thing. All right, let's go back to our questions. How were Caesar Augustus, and Julius Caesar alike? How were they alike? They helped the poor, they helped the soldiers. Yes, those are both ways that they were very much alike. They both made changes in the government. They were both really, really powerful. They both related to the common people. Remember, Julius Caesar, although he was a patrician, his family was poor. So he related very well to the plebeians because he was very much like them. So they related to the common people. How were they different? This is the big thing. The people who held all the power, the Senate, they had a very adversarial relationship with Julius Caesar. They did not get along. He could not get them to help him do anything. Caesar Augustus, on the other hand, had a great relationship with him. So he was able to get the leading Romans to help him out as well. And the wealthy Romans were afraid of Julius Caesar. They were not afraid of Caesar Augustus. And so that's why they had Julius Caesar assassinated. Okay, here's a challenging question for you. Knowing that Caesar Augustus rejected the title of emperor, but accepted the title of first citizen of Rome, what do you think is the difference between those two? This is a tough question. You're going to have to think about it. Well, emperor sounds like somebody who is above everybody else, who's better than everyone else. That's why he did not want that title. But first citizen makes him sound like he is one of the citizens. He's the first citizen, but he's still one of the citizens. Yes, very good. Great job, guys. Okay, I am going to end here. And tomorrow we'll come back and we'll take notes on this chapter. There are quite a few, so make sure that you have your interactive notebook with you when you open up the next video for tomorrow, which is Tuesday. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.